So our last little dialogue here is about the Living Laudato Si retreat kit. So this came about when I saw the relationship between several Franciscan key words and themes in Laudato Si. So a keyword is like a theme that holds that there's like a bundle of ideas, and I in the rule of 1221, which was one of the draft rules or rules that Francis drafted, and it was not the one we currently observe, but it was written to convey the spirit of the Franciscan way of living. There are these words, love, beauty, that really come through very strong competence, and that I couldn't help but notice them as being important in Laudato Si. For example, the terms beauty or beautiful occur 40 times in Laudato Si, but most people don't even recognize that they're in there or that beauty is uh, has a religious dimension to it. So I thought it would be really good to create um, a, an, a retreat for which I gave first and foremost to friars, to Franciscans, to be able to connect these Franciscan keywords with Laudato Si. And so each day in this 5-day retreat, we focused on one word, and I had the friars kind of read and reflect on the passage in the rule, and then also on the paragraphs in Laudato Si that bring these up. And then we would have an experiential activity outdoors, a prayer walk, or a visited ecological cowboy ranch, or we went to witness some biodiversity in an aquarium, and we use those activities to sort of drive home one of these keywords. And so I've used that little toolkit in a couple of different ways, and I just think that's so helpful to be able to take some time away from the busyness of our day to day work life to be able to reflect a little bit more deeply. um, Pam, why don't you say a little bit about what makes retreats appealing to you, and like what's an example of an experience you've had on one, and what you try to provide for others when you provide or lead retreats?
Well, I'm so glad that you've developed a retreat like this based on Laudato Si, and so glad that we could include this in the book. Because I know in my young adulthood, just and on into my adulthood, just going to retreats has been so valuable in developing it's kind of my formation, my spiritual formation. Um, there was a lovely place at the Oregon coast that was run by the Jesuits called Nistaka Retreat, and I went there for many years. And what I loved about it is not only was I meeting other people who supported my contemplative life, but also the way we were living there, the way we were living together on the land and cooking was very different than how I lived at home, and it gave me a vision of how I could live more lightly on the earth and in more harmony with the earth. And the liturgies that we did around the fire, around the hearth, were very based in creation, and it was just such a life-giving place for me. Um, and so I think it's just really important for all of us. It's not Retreats aren't just for people that live in the religious life. They're for all of us, and whether we can only do a day retreat, fit that into our life, or we can do a whole weekend, or if we could do a 5-day retreat like you've created for us. Um, they're just so crucial in all of us really taking time out of the craziness of our world and the overstimulation of our world, and just really stepping back and taking the larger view and also looking inward and really hearing the call about what's required of us right now in this world.
So, when can you tell us an example of when you've given a retreat? Perhaps you've given retreats to give us a sense of who you've given retreats to, because I think some folks might look at this activity and say, "Oh, I couldn't lead a retreat. I'm not a member of religious order. I don't have a graduate degree in theology. I don't have the
Right.
training and background." And like that didn't stop you.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've led everything from 3-hour closing retreats for at University of Portland here. Um, one of the guys that went to one of my retreats for Earth Day at his parish asked me to come do a closing retreat for the students that were finishing up an ecological immersion, and so they were really taking a deep dive over their spring break into all the ecological justice issues around Portland area, and afterwards, several of those students have shared with me like that was almost too intense. They felt like they kind of had lost hope. And when they really did open their eyes to see what was really happening in our Columbia River and all sorts of places. And so um, to have a closing retreat where we could really consider that last activity that we talked about and what our place is in the Great Turning was really helpful for him, and to think about the concept of active hope. And then I've done weekend retreats. The Sisters of St. Francis in Philadelphia, after we published our book, asked me to come do a whole weekend on it, and even then it didn't feel like there was enough time to really delve into the book all the ways that we could. But yeah, and then the Franciscan Spirituality Center here has had me come for like day-long retreats. And my guess is that in almost every city around the country, there's probably places like that for lay people who can really plug into a retreat like that. And really, it's just real spiritual food for what we're going through right now. And we all need it. We
Yeah,
need that.
I think it's quite appropriate that you mentioned that many times when we stop the external stimulus and go on a
Uh-huh.
retreat, that we can have a wide range of internal experiences, emotional and kind of spiritual experiences because of memory and what our knowledge is, or whether we're on, you described these students who are like, they began to really take inventory of the state of the world around them that they had ignored. And then that just sort of brings this heightened sense of anxiety or despair. And so I think I know that Joanna Macy is, particularly good at, and thought she herself has journeyed into the depths of despair and found a
Yeah.
way out of it. And I think that we can look at our example of our father Saint Francis and the way in which he also experienced great depths of despair, but through prayer and through meditation and through um, through opening himself up more deeply to the Holy Spirit and God, and through spiritual exercises, he was able to kind of come out on the other side. And I think a lot of people are reluctant to go to where the pain is. But really, that's what our Franciscan tradition and Pope Francis calls us to look at this and to take it in and to really see it. But then that requires us to also then go deeper into ourselves to find the source of life within us, who is God, that can come out and help us to draw strength to be able to engage a world which is so deeply broken, indeed being shredded.
Yeah, I think about how Parker Palmer talks about spirituality and contemplate or action and contemplation as two sides of the same coin. If we're just engaged in action and we aren't taking time to feed ourselves, then we're going to get burnt out. No doubt about it, with especially with the weight of what we're facing right now. But if we're just engaged in spirituality without action, then it can be turn into a little bit of navel gazing sometimes. So to balance the two, I just love how he talks about our action becomes sacramental when we inform it with both like a looking at what's real in front of us, and drawing into the depths of the spiritual traditions that we have, and bringing those spiritual resources to help us walk that path.
So, in the very back end of the book, at the end of the toolkit for reflective practitioners and Franciscan formation, you'll find this Living Laudato Si retreat kit. It's off the shelf, ready to go. You can use it however you see fit with any kind of group. With great, works great for 5 days, for a weekend, for a couple of different evenings or days of recollection. It's kind of up to you. But I would say we encourage you to engage that material, not as something to be sort of like, oh, isn't this nice as you read through the book, but like to roll up your sleeves and share it with others. And that's really where how this I think will really work well, and it will both be more meaningful spiritually to you, dear reader, as well as making a positive impact on the world. Um,
Yeah, and if it feels like, even a day-long retreat is out of your grasp, that there's chapters 3, 6, 9, and 12, and then this final thing where you can just take one of the activities and do them with a group in your church or friends of yours, and even that can help you start having that retreat experience and getting that kind of spiritual nourishment even in shorter periods of time.
would you conclude our dialogue, Pam, with a story from Dr. Seuss?
Well, my kids are now 18 and 19, but one of the stories I liked reading them the most was Horton Hears a Who. And I really love it because um, Horton was just, no, it wasn't Horton. They were going around getting every single person. It's like so important for every single person to, um, to raise their voice so that Horton could hear them. And
They were all in Whoville, and they were all
yes,
trying to raise their voice to say who they were, as Horton wasn't paying attention to them. They were too small.
thank you. It's been 10 years since
Yeah,
I read it,
right.
but it sticks with me because I just really feel like that's what this is going to take for us to pull off this great turning and to really turn our direction in a way that's sustainable, life sustaining far into the future. It's going to take every single one of us finding whatever it is that we can do right now with what we've got available to us. So
And so that's how we see this book, this expanded version. It builds upon the original version of some 17, 18 years ago, but it's updated. It reflects Laudato Si. It has an additional set of resources for you, dear reader, to be able to engage in your life, in your family's life, in the life of your community. And in that way, we can all raise our voices and participate in shaping the great turning to make the world to correspond more closely to what it is that God dreams for all of us. And with that, we say to you, the Lord give you peace.